Welcome into the Landon Tengwall Show, sponsored by the Student Bookstore downtown. Get all your Penn State merch needs. Today's guest, Big Ten champion, one of the greatest to ever do it in the blue and white. Back at Penn State coaching now, Trace McSorley. Trace, appreciate you coming on, man.
Hey, how we doing?
Good, man. Good. Welcome back to State College.
Appreciate it.
Back in town.
Feels good.
Yeah. What's the transition been like being back? Not no longer as a player, or as a student, but now as a coach, a grown adult.
It's been cool. Kind of felt like a seamless transition. Obviously, haven't been here, comfortable in the area, know what's what around here. It's not like I'm moving somewhere that's brand new, having to figure it all out. Experienced a different side of the community, right? Not being a student, so kind of branching out a little bit more into the community and people that are around. Me and my wife kind of met some other people around that weren't students and stuff like that. So that's kind of been fun to kind of check out some new things and kind of meet new people and stuff like that. So we've enjoyed it.
Coming back home, it's always easy, man. What were those initial conversations like with Coach Franklin? Had you reached out to him and said this might be a possibility, or how did that go down?
Yeah, that's kind of how it went. I was here kind of like explained last fall and summer kind of training, and kind of like you said, Coach Franklin's got that open door policy for Letterman. He's if you're one of his guys, he'll do what he can to help you, not just as a player and become the player you want to be, but post-playing career. So we sat down at one point, and we're just talking about how I saw my career going, what I thought the next steps for me would maybe be. And, the resources that they have here at Penn State are awesome to where, I was thinking either a coaching career, maybe doing some media stuff, or, getting into like kind of the business world and kind of figuring that out. So, there was no better place for me to continue to train and stay ready in case I did get a call, kind of get to see what the coaching lifestyle would be. There were a handful of media opportunities and people coming in the Penn State network that's here, especially in the fall, to be able to, all right, hey, I can explore a little bit of this and that and try to figure it out. So he was super helpful, and hey, anything we can do with the program or our career development guys, like those doors and avenues are still open for you, even though you're not a current player. Like we got those connections. So it was just super helpful. He was there for me. And then once I decided that coaching was a thing, then it kind of became, all right, what role, what do they even have here? Do they have a position here? And then it kind of became, it worked out that, position was open, and, I had been around, it helped that I had been around the coaching staff last year because, that relationship that I had with Danny, I think helped because it wasn't bringing in a brand new guy. It was someone that he had known. Same with Coach K and the rest of the offensive staff, and obviously the relationship with Coach Franklin.
Yeah, absolutely. What was that, kind of process of figuring out, like you said, the role was open, but I guess kind of take me through, like, what's a day in the life of what you do with your job now? I think a lot of people are interested. They see your back, but, like, what are, working with guys in film, throwing with the guys? What's a day in the life of Trace McSorley now?
Man, a lot of it is, you don't realize, again, as a player, like all the back office work that kind of goes into it. As a player,
you get the paper in front of you, and it's like...
the paper, the PowerPoint presentation is there, the installs are ready, the drawings are up. You kind of take for granted that someone's putting all that together. So a lot of my days are getting those ready and kind of getting with Danny as far as how you structure out a practice. And, all right, hey, we're going to do this drill. I'll be here, you'll be here. These are, kind of, working in lockstep with him. But then also being able to be around guys like Drew, aid in his development where I can. Same with Ethan Grunkmeyer, Smolik, and then new dude Beckham Kritzer, kind of being able to he's learning the ropes kind of early on, drinking water through a fire hose as every freshman is. So, being able to kind of help him and lean in on my experience that I had here and being able to relate to some of these guys that, because I'm maybe a little bit younger and I was in it more recently, it's just a different perspective. And then that kind of helps that, being able to work with those guys.
Yeah, so that's what I want to talk about is, like, having just finished playing, and like you said, you're younger, you're able to kind of relate, and not many people know what it's like to be a quarterback at Penn State. Like, I'm sure it's difficult. Like, certain times, like, I've saw it with Cliff, saw it with Drew. Like, you can barely like go downtown without getting mobbed. Are they kind of able to like lean on you a little bit and talk to you about like what that is like, and you be able to give a little bit of information and just piece of like, hey, this is how I dealt with things?
Yeah. I think a little bit. Everyone's got their own process. Drew's been doing it for 3-4 years now, so like he's got it figured out. But I think being able to lean on my experience for some of the younger guys, how I would go about watching tape, what my game plan routine was from Sunday to game day, like how I structured all that, because these young guys are coming out of high school, they didn't typically have that. So, those are things that I've kind of been able to bring. But also my years playing in the NFL, leaning on that experience, being able to see how a Lamar Jackson or Kyler Murray, Mac Jones, there's a list goes on of guys I've played with and been around that have made great long careers for themselves. The coaches I've been around, how they kind of structure the week out, and the business side of it that you don't see, and kind of being able to, that's where all these guys are trying to get to. So being able to tell them, hey, this is what it's like at this level. It's a lot of, you hear it as a young guy from a coach or someone that's coming back that it sounds like lip service. All right, it's all great and cool, but from someone who was actually just in it and lived it and kind of went through a few ups but a ton of downs in that level, I think it kind of is able to get a little bit more real for some of these guys.
Yeah, and I think that can help throughout the season too. Like you said, you go through ups and downs. You got to deal with stuff, and like you said, you've lived it all. So I'm sure it's just a fantastic resource for them to have. Speaking of that, you get to coach. You're starting out your first time with one of the best quarterbacks in all of college football. That's got to be kind of fun to be around. What were your first impressions of getting out there, seeing Drew lead, seeing him throw the football? What were you thinking when you first got to campus?
Yeah, I mean, he's just very much about his business. Super motivated kid. I had a few little conversations with him, but it's one of those things when you actually see him, how he goes about it. He's, as you said, one of the top guys. A lot of people have him rated highly, and he's well aware of it, but you wouldn't know it by how he works, and I think that kind of sets him apart. I mean, he's really taken it on himself to become a much better leader and kind of try to bring everyone along, and even with the younger guys, setting the standard. There's such a veteran team now that what we have, a guy like Drew, obviously is still leading the older guys because you go as your quarterback goes, but he's also taking a little more ownership as far as getting some of these younger dudes, kind of pull them along. So listen, anyone on that roster who can help us, he's trying to get them right because he knows where he's trying to get to, and he knows where he wants to push this team to. So just the ownership that he's taken has been awesome. Yeah,
you talking about those younger guys, and I think people are excited. You talked about Smolik, Grunkmeyer. Can you shed a little bit of light on? We haven't really seen much from either of them. Just kind of getting around them to start. Is there anything you've seen from those guys that you've liked up to this point?
Both of their competitiveness, I think, is great, and kind of how they've gone about it as far as when it gets thrown out like a competition that sometimes can get awkward in a room, especially in a quarterback room where it's so intense, the competition, but there's so few guys, it can sometimes get awkward. I've been in rooms where, people get tight and it's a little weird. You wouldn't know with those two guys, just how they handle their business, how they go about it. I think that kind of comes from the top down. Coach Franklin to Coach K, Danny, how Drew goes about his business has kind of helped all these guys kind of come along. All the tides rise to that level. So, I just think it's one of those things that, they both handle themselves really well. They're both super driven, competitive, but they both have their, mind in the right place that they need to do whatever it is to help Penn State get to where they want to get to. And, if they handle their business the way they want to, they'll be in that picture. But they're both very team driven, very team focused, and I think that just kind of settles everything to where now they're just out there supporting each other, pushing each other, grinding on their own, and it's just going to make our team better.
Absolutely. You get out there and throw it all? You've been throwing it all?
I haven't thrown in a while. It's been a minute, honestly, since I've thrown. You get a little bit here and there, but not actually any full speed reps or anything like that.
I feel you. Trace, I meant to bring up too, when it got announced that Trace was back, we were actually together because we had hosted the Thon Pep Rally, and it was hilarious because me and Trace were coming off and we were announcing each team that's coming out, and so we announced Pat Kraft to come up. And Pat just gets up and he's like, forget it, I'm going to say it. He's like, Trace is back. And Trace looks at me, he's like, well, I guess we just announced it.
Out of the bag. I wasn't even 100% sure. I was kind of working through the beginning parts of the HR stuff and, getting approved and everything. And he just dropped it. I'm like, well, I guess it's out there. Who am I to not tell him to do it? So,
yeah.
It was funny. And some people caught it, some people didn't, which that kind of added a little more mystery to it all. Kind of got everyone fired up. But yeah, that was funny.
What were the responses? You get a lot. I'm sure you got a ton of texts when it was announced that you were back, and just getting a ton of love from Nittany Nation.
Yeah, mostly Twitter stuff. Yeah. They're kind of coming through there, and family and friends and people who I had close to my circle, reaching out and texting me excited about it.
Yeah, no, hey, we're so happy to have you back, man. It's going to be an awesome season. Trace, my last question for you. I'm sure you've heard it too many times, but I had to ask on camera. Where were you when the Trace McSorley song popped off? Like, did you wake up and it's just like, you're like, what the heck is happening? Because it was like the biggest thing of that time when it happened.
Throw it on a dime, like I ain't even trying. Just a kid from Briarwoods, I'm wearing number 9.
Yeah, that's actually, I kind of just woke up one day. I was in Baltimore, it's COVID year, so I wake up and it was at the time like we were doing our social distance Zoom meetings. So I wake up for the meeting, go to log on, and a buddy from high school who I hadn't talked to probably since we graduated was like, dude, have you seen this? Send me a text. And I open it, the song had came out my senior year, so I was like, I've heard that, and that's a funny little clip, whatever. Set my phone down, go to practice, and when I get back, like my phone is blowing up. And I'm like, what the hell is going on? Like, why? This has been out there. Like, so I never really thought anything about it. And then it just took off from there, and I couldn't get away from it. It went crazy. Ended up like getting back to Coach Harbs through his daughter, who's a high school player at the time. And he said, hey, my daughter showed me this video. Like, this is pretty funny. Like, it's kind of cool. I'm like, yeah, those Penn State fans, they're crazy, man. And then he plays in a team meeting room. And like, thank God, like everyone had to have a mask on because my face was as red as this table, like beet red. Yeah, he played like a whole 2-minute clip of it where like it just got awkward in the room. Like, Harbs, change it, please. Please change it. Move on. It was funny for the first 30 seconds, but 2.5 minutes of it, it's a while. So, it was fun. It's something that I couldn't really control, and I just try to have fun with it. But yeah, people will come up to me, especially the younger generation, younger kids now. That's like all they ask. Even going through like starting this recruiting thing, like getting around some of these younger cats, like they always say, hey, I gotta ask, and I already know what's coming immediately when they start like that. I'm like, what you got, buddy?
Yeah. What real quick, actually, what has being involved in recruitment? I'm sure that's been awesome to kind of have you around talking to people. What is kind of your involvement? You just around kind of go to like when the recruits are coming in, talking to them, just chopping it up.
Yeah, kind of whatever I'm able to do with the recruiting guys, and when they're on campus, it's a part of the job that is a big part, especially in college football. So, through the spring, a lot of it for me was a learning process. How to evaluate guys, all the databases and all that. Like I'm learning all those types of things. So, but I've started to get more comfortable with it. As these guys get older, you can kind of get into the, talking with them, especially when they come on campus, and kind of getting to see how that flow goes, building relationship with guys, and then again being able to offer whatever expertise I have to them, having sat in that chair that we're trying to get them to sit in. So. Yeah. It's it's been a great process. It's been awesome to be around. Coach O'Brien does a fantastic job in the recruiting game, and he's one of the best guys. And being able to learn from him, especially how he does it, how he presents. When he's running the recruiting stuff with the guys, talking to families, talking to kids. Casting out a wide net, so making sure he's covering everyone in the country. It's a massive part of the job. So I'm still learning it a little bit, but it's been fun. Again, everything's a new experience for me right now. So I'm kind of trying to roll with the punches. Take it all and learn as much as I can. Yeah,
it's definitely a little bit different recruiting nowadays.
Yeah,
it's just
completely different.
Just a little bit. Trace McSorley, appreciate you coming in, man. Forever Penn State legend, my guy. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Everybody, please like, comment, subscribe. Peace.